Because again, we all know as coaches, there is no substitution for repetition in life. You want to be the best weightlifter? Guess what you got to do? Lift weights. You want to be the best quarterback? Guess what you got to do? Play quarterback. You want to be the best guy in the world at motivational speaking or talking in a group? You know what you better start doing? Standing up in the cafeteria and learn how to do it. Like, there's no way to do anything without failure and repetition.
Today's episode is a segment from the Indiana Football Coaches Association clinic held this past offseason. In this one, offensive coordinator at Indiana, Walt Bell, shares his thoughts and insight on the RPO. He's got a lot of good nuggets here before he hits the film, so we grabbed this part as a promotion for the Indiana Football Coaches Association clinic. You can get those replays right now on CoachTube. The link to that will be in the show notes. So here's Coach Bell talking about RPO.
Really quickly, obviously, just so you guys kind of know my background, so kind of where this is coming from. Everybody steals from everybody. I invented nothing, okay? You know, Sid Gilman threw Whitecross in 1960-something for the San Diego Chargers. Nobody has invented anything. So just kind of my background. In 1999, I went to Middle Tennessee State University. I was a really average college football player. I was a little triple option quarterback in high school, ran for a bunch of yards, went there, thought I was going to be a quarterback, saw the other two kids throw in my recruiting class, realized I got to go somewhere else. They moved me from quarterback to safety. My redshirt freshman year, I played a little bit on defense, played all special teams, and the greatest thing in the world happened to me was all the wideouts in a 10 personnel system got hurt. So because I played quarterback, they had to move me where? Receiver. Stayed there for 4 years. The offensive part of it comes from this. Okay, in 1999, when I went to Middle Tennessee State University, there were 3 spread, 1 back, no huddle, play as fast as you can offenses in football, period. NFL, college, high school. There's a guy by the name of Chip Kelly at New Hampshire. There's a guy by the name of Rich Rodriguez at Fairmont State, a Division II school in West Virginia. And then there was Larry Fedora, who was a triple option football coach at Air Force, who had just become the offensive coordinator at Middle Tennessee. And he knew that if I'm going to make something of myself in this profession, I have to be different because I'm coaching guys like Walt Bell at Middle Tennessee State University. I'm not going to light the world on fire. So what did he do? He fired up Netscape Navigator, okay, got in his green Saturn, and drove to New Hampshire and drove to Fairmont State because he went and just found who had the best stats, and that was them. So I had the early opportunity to play in what was considered basically like the triple option, a fad. This is going to go away. This is going to ruin football. This isn't any good. And now when you look at football at all 3 levels, from the NFL to high school, everybody's kind of a spread, 1 back, no huddle. We're all kind of the same. We were top 5 in the country for Larry Fedora's 2 years on offense. Larry gets the OC job at Florida, and then Blake Anderson comes. Blake Anderson being not necessarily of fame, but Blake Anderson was the head coach whose wife died of breast cancer during the college football season. Then 16 months later, his dad died, and then a couple weeks ago, his youngest son committed suicide. So Blake has obviously dealt with a lot, but he's an incredible man. But I got the fortunate part of when Blake showed up, he was a Hal Mummy guy. Like pure as the driven snow. Obviously, Hal Mummy begat Mike Leach. Mike Leach begat Dana Holgerson and Art Briles and Kendall Briles. So there's an element of the air raid in my background. You know, for all you guys that have ever run Tony Franklin's system, 95 and 92 and 96. And so that's a huge part of what we do. And then when I got to be the offensive coordinator for the first time, 2014 at Arkansas State, our first year there, we were 8th in the country in scoring. Because we scored a lot of points, people wanted to talk to us. And then in 2015, we finished 5th in the country in scoring. But in that offseason, Coach Briles got fired. Okay, with all the things that went on at Baylor, and so I got to spend a lot of time with Coach Briles, and obviously that's where some of this is from too. So just so when you see all this, just understand that like it's kind of a conglomeration of those 2 or 3 systems. We all good there? Okay, now how many guys in here have coached the triple option before? Like coached the real triple. Like I learned to play football on one of these things right here and old school VHS Darryl Royal Coach's Choice tapes. I ran the triple option from the time I was in the 6th grade to the time I graduated high school. 3 middle schools, 1 county high school, 2,600 kids in the high school. From the time I was in 6th grade, I ran 10, 11, midline, 12 and 13, the triple, 8 and 9, rocket toss, like getting after it. Ran for 2,100 yards my senior year. Why? Because by the time I got old, I wasn't pitching it very much. Okay? But everybody here has run the triple, correct? Like there's a lot of coaches in here, especially some of the older guys, that have ran the triple. I'm here to tell you this, that running the triple option, if you ran the real triple, it's harder on your quarterbacks to learn how to run the triple because the decision making is so much faster. Why? Because that read is right there. If I'm taking this ball from center on 12 and 13, the C gap is right there and he is right on top of me. That is not a lot of time and distance or space to make that first read. So if I'm reading the C gap and then I'm pitching off 3 from the sideline, like that's a quick decision. And because I'm so close to the line of scrimmage, there's a lot of physical violence possibly involved as well. And with some young players, that makes it a little bit harder too, because there's like dire physical consequences if I don't get this ball out right, have the right body posture. You know, now the rules are way different, but in my day, if you pitched it late, like you could get hit in the face and everybody was okay with it. It's not that way anymore. But I'm here to tell you, because typically the thing that I'll get from high school coaches, like it's too hard for the quarterback. Having run the triple my whole life, I honestly think running the triple is probably harder because of the speed of the decision making and the violent consequences. So knowing that, I'm going to talk about this. This is basically modern day triple option football. That's really what it is. And when you run the triple, you know that you're going to see like 1 or 2 looks. Like that's what you're going to see. And typically, if you run the triple nowadays, you also know that people don't see it very much, so what I get is going to be really simple. That's all we're trying to do on offense. We're trying to render you very simple. Now, the guys in here that have run the triple in their life, the reason that you're comfortable with allowing that quarterback to make all those decisions on the fly is because of repetition. Like we're going to rep 10, 11, 12, and 13 so much when we run the triple, he can't get it wrong. Well, guess what? That's what we're trying to do here. Because again, we all know as coaches, there is no substitution for repetition in life. You want to be the best weightlifter? Guess what you got to do? Lift weights. You want to be the best quarterback? Guess what you got to do? Play quarterback. You want to be the best guy in the world at motivational speaking or talking in a group? You know what you better start doing? Standing up in the cafeteria and learn how to do it. Like there's no way to do anything without failure and repetition. So that's what we're trying to get done here. Now, I'm going to go to the next slide, and there's going to be a wide end zone copy. This is when I was the offensive coordinator at Maryland. It just so happens that my boss was the defensive coordinator at Indiana at this time. So I was the OC at Arkansas State for 2 years, so you're going to see clips from Arkansas State. You're going to see clips from when we were at Maryland. You'll see different splitting and all types of other stuff based on whether I was working for an offensive head coach or defensive head coach. It doesn't matter. But the one thing I want you to understand, based off this copy, is this is how simple it can be for your quarterbacks. The quarterback needs to know a couple really simple things. And everybody in this room, if we wanted to like do this like kindergarten, which I'm not going to make you do that, but I make them do that, the 18-year-olds, is how many potential blockers do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many blockers do we have? 6. How many defenders are in this tackle box? 6. Guess whose job it is to keep it that way? His. That's his job. Because we all, you know, at Arkansas State, we finished 5th in the country in scoring in 2015. And we threw for a bunch of yards. But we were 2nd in the league in rushing behind a triple option team and 18th in the country in rushing the football. Why? Because when we ran the ball, we were even numbered. We're running this ball. We have 5 blockers. We're going to run it when there's 5 guys in there. If we have 6 blockers, we're going to block 6 people. If we have 7 hats, we're going to block 7 people. Like again, we're doing like RPO. Like we do not want to make these pros. These aren't pass run options. Like I am an old school guy. I told you I grew up running the triple option. Like you have to be able to run the football to win games. At some point, at some time in any program in football, guess what you got to be able to do? Run the ball. Tough teams. Run the football, stop the run, cover kicks, and block kicks. That's what tough teams do. And if you're going to win a championship, you have to be a tough team. So again, why do we do this? Because we want to make sure that we're running the ball in the right look. So we've established we've got 6 blockers. They have 6 guys in the box. So your quarterback, if he can count to 6 or he can count to 5, can probably do this job. That's the first concept of this that you have to understand. Now, the next thing that young man needs to understand is 7 is more than 6. Pretty easy to understand, correct? 7 is more than 6. So now, you can call any 6-man run blocking scheme that you want. Tight zone, wide zone, insert zone, power, counter, in any direction. I don't care. You can do anything you want. Pick an imaginary run scheme and run it, but as long as we have those 6 gaps protected, the quarterback's going to be okay. Whatever your run schemes are. You're a big believer in power, God's play, get after it. You're a believer in counter because it's a little more forgiving, but it's still a gap scheme, get after it. You want to run tight zone, lock zone, insert zone, wide zone, it doesn't matter. So you pick any 6-man box run that you want. Boundary, field, doesn't matter. 7 is more than 6, what do I mean? Pre-snap, when that quarterback comes to the line of scrimmage, his eyes are immediately going to go to the 2-player to the field. Now, the next question you're probably going to ask is, what is he talking about, the 2-player? That's a sand, that's a nickel, that's a star, that's whatever you want to call it. So again, Coach Mummy, who begat Coach Leach and all those other guys, he was a lawyer by trade. He's a very common sense football coach. He didn't grow up like everybody else where this guy was a Sam and this guy was a Will and that was a this and that. Whoever the dude standing close to number 2 is, guess what he is? The 2-player. Really common sense. So that quarterback's going to go look at number 2, and if that 2-player is where he belongs, if he is somewhere outside of the 50-50 line, which we call the apex, if he's out there where he belongs, if he can't tackle the back for less than 4 yards, pass go, collect $200. So pre-snap, as I look out there, if that 2-player is nice and wide and he can't tackle the back for less than 4 yards, he is no longer in the count. He is no longer the most dangerous 7th guy. Everybody good there? If that 2-player is nice and wide and we have any run scheme call, who could possibly be the next most dangerous guy? That dude right there. Because if I'm running some type of tight zone scheme, if I'm running whatever field or boundary, it's probably going to be that safety. He's probably going to be the next most dangerous 7th guy. So if that 2-player is nice and wide, as I go to call for the ball, down, set, hit, down, clap, whatever it is that you guys do, is that ball is caught, no different than you used to read the 5 or the C-gap player. When that ball is caught and he goes to sit in the mesh, he's going to drive his eyes to the next possible threat or the next possible 7th defender. Pretty simple, correct? Now, I'm going to go to another level of detail. If there are 7 dudes standing in that box, see that 2-receiver side right there? That can be whatever you want it to be. It can be some type of a man beater, which is the college level we've kind of had to go to because that's everybody's answer to RPO, just play man-to-man and cover you up. Double slant, slant swing, what we call shin, go pick a guy and run somebody from the outside in. Any 2-man concept you want. So he goes out there, oh God, there's 7 guys in this box. Coach has said I can't ever run 7 on 6. I'm going to throw a quick game. I'm going to throw a perimeter screen, whatever you want. The next thing is, 2 players nice and wide, coach me on this route. So this single side guy, and these are words that a Hoosier can't use, but I had a very callous football coach who had really poor language. He called it a Fargo. And what that meant was it was a freak around and get open. If it's press man to man, I can guarantee you he didn't say F-R-E-A-K. What that means is if it's press man to man, guess what I'm doing? I'm running by you. Because if they want to run down there and get 7 in there, we're going to throw a touchdown, we're going to throw it over your head. Or at least we're going to get pass interference if you can convince the quarterback just to throw a catchable ball and not throw it out of bounds or overthrow it. Why? Because a man running full speed has never sped up, and no ball in the history of the game has ever been called out of bounds. And typically what happens is, especially nowadays, DB panics, and the rules are so soft that if he breathes on the guy, it's pass interference. That's 15 yards. It's a huge play. If anything else, he's going to run 5 hard steps with his inside foot up. He's going to slam his outside foot in the ground, and he's going to run inside of the open patch of grass. Based on experience, that ball gets typically caught somewhere near the hash mark. Okay? At your level, your hashes are slightly wider. So that ball would probably get caught somewhere inside the hash mark. But it's that simple. And you can really overcoach it. But the most important thing you want that single side receiver to do, if it's not press coverage, is maintain his speed. I don't need him to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and give me a bunch of stuff at the top. You slam your outside foot in the ground, you go as flat and as fast as you possibly can, attacking that hash mark, and the quarterback will throw it to you. The quarterback's already got enough on his plate. We don't need some overly defined route. And I know that sounds weird as a football coach. They're it's not perfect, and there's no details. Because as a quarterback, you're not throwing to people, you're throwing to windows. He sees that thing move, that's where he's throwing the ball. Now, for the quarterback, how does he read it? Again, I am staring at this 2-player. If he's where he belongs, now I am reading that weak alley defender. How do we coach the quarterback to see this? Because again, I've had tall guys. Okay, I had Brandon Wheaton at Oklahoma State, 6'4" something. Zach Robinson, 6'3". At Carolina, we had Mitch Trubisky, 6'1.5", 6'2". At Maryland, we had Tyrell Pegram was our quarterback when we beat Texas 56-46. He was shaped like a gummy bear, about 5'9.5". We've had all different shapes and sizes. And when you're playing and coaching the quarterback from 5 yards behind the guy, the center, when he's back there, he can't tell the difference between 10 yards and 9 yards. He can't tell the difference between 12 and 11. He's kind of just seeing an area, which again is much softer when that 5 technique was right there. So here's how we teach him. I'm going to ride with the pointer here. Is wherever that weak alley player is, there's a line in front of his feet. Now, eventually they get good enough. If the guy's standing at 6 or 7 yards at backer depth, they understand that. On this first clip, that's what's about to happen. But if you put a line in front of his feet, we call that the strike point. Why? Because that's the term Bill Walsh used in 1988, and his career was pretty good, so we stole it. If that dude comes running forward off the strike point, pull it and replace him. If that guy's feet stay on the strike point, he's not going to tackle us for less than 4. Hand the ball off. If he goes backwards, do what? Hand the ball off. It's really that simple. When I first started doing this in 2014 at Arkansas State, when there's really only 2 teams in the country doing it, all the time, every single run play, that was Coach Briles at Baylor and us at Arkansas State, it was stealing because defensive guys had no idea what we were doing. And those safeties were flying down there in quarters and trying to go, be the C-gap spill player or first force in the D-gap, and it was stealing. Well, now the defensive guys are a lot smarter. And they'll hang in there for a little bit and be slow to go and see it handed off, so we've had to change too. But that's all we're doing. Instead of reading that 5 technique on the triple, we're now reading the guy standing somewhere about 8 or 9 yards deep. He comes running, replace him. Now the next question you typically get is what's the trajectory on this ball? What's the trajectory? Here's what I'm going to tell you. If you got a ton of grass, you got a little more what? Room to throw. If that guy really runs downhill, it may be a loose 2. That guy comes flying and it's tight, I may have to bang it. There is a backyard element to this ball, and you're going to see almost every type of ball thrown. Everybody good there? The next thing you're going to see on this tape before I start rolling the video, because you're all tired of hearing me talk, and I understand that. You'd rather see the video than just listen to me drone on about football. Is there are situations where that corner's not very good. And you know that instead of throwing the low percentage fade ball, that you just want to lock this route and make it the 5-step freak around, get open, where you just want to leave it on. That's fine too, because there's situations where at Arkansas State or Maryland where we're playing not very good people. We just want to lead the route on for the consistency for the quarterback.
Some really good insight there from Coach Bell. I really liked how he broke things down and simplified the teaching of that. And as we continue through the summer, nearing camp, I think those are important things as we take a look at our installs and how we're going to approach teaching, especially new concepts, to our young players. So that entire talk where he continues on and shows a lot of these examples with video is available on CoachTube in the Indiana Football Coaches Association Clinic replays. The link to that is in the show notes. Follow all we're doing on coachingcoordinator.com and follow me on Twitter at Coach K. Grabowski.